I remember growing up way before the internet, and I was aware of the conspiracy theories that were rampant throughout the world about the New World Order. And I can remember seeing on the Roosevelt Monument that he left a message for us there, and it says something along the lines of those who seek to regiment or those who seek to establish system of governments to regiment all of humanity based on the powers of a few call this a new order. It is not new and it is not order. So as the internet is making information more widely available to people, more and more people are waking up to the fact that there's powers that control things. And then when you study history, you'll recognize that, how can I put this? A lot of these mystery schools that I talked about, a lot of these different branches of the 7 sacred churches and all of these different groups of people, wealthy families, they kind of evolved into corporations. And that's why a lot of times if you study the word logos and how it ties into semantics and geometry and everything, and then you see those same things on corporate logos, that's no reason. They believe it's like a magic. And I made a video about divination and how I can't see how it relates, but there is a quote that J.P. Morgan, one of the wealthiest men in the world, contributed to the Federal Reserve System. But you got to understand, anybody who's got a birth certificate and a Social Security card in their pocket, they're part of the money system. Anybody that doesn't have a Social Security card and a birth certificate is probably invested into the money system. Like all the royal families and the families that invest into the Corporation of the United States of America through the Federal Reserve, their kids go to private schools, private health cares, all of that good stuff, and they don't carry around Social Security cards. When you start to learn about time, you'll learn that under time is an umbrella of many things, because without time there's no commerce. So under time, under the Gregorian calendar, you have this universal code of commerce, and then you have civil and maritime law, common law, all the banking industries all wrapped up into it. And when you start to unravel those certain mysteries that are kind of kept hidden from us, it can make you extremely paranoid and start to freak out. And I don't let it really bother me myself, because I realize that my life on this earth is relatively short, and as long as I can be in harmony and peace and be happy, that's all that matters to me. And nobody's invading, nobody's kicking my doors down. But all of us that are paying taxes are waking up to these things, going, "Hey, there's a group of people that don't pay taxes." The United States itself is a corporation, and every corporation has a president. And a lot of people think that the buck stops there, but who's the shareholders? Who's the investors in the corporation? That'd be the people who own the Federal Reserve that print the money. And it's kind of strange, and it gets even weirder when you study all this crazy stuff. You'll see that many wars were fought over these banks. Andrew Jackson, on his deathbed, said, "I killed the banks." And then a lot of these guys who stood up to these powers that be, these elite, these elevated ones, or Illuminati, some people call them, or the Elohim, everything that comes from the word El, elite, elevated, elders, all of these people that have powers over authorities, even the authority figures that run our lives, the sheriffs, the police officers, they all have sacred geometrical symbols of authority, which are symbols of the logos, or a logo of authority. And you start to understand this stuff, and it freaks you out at first. But, if we all get a good grasp of it without getting scared, then how much power will people have over you? And I know I see all these people, wanting to shut down the banking system and all that stuff. But when you realize who's behind the banking system, and they've been doing it for thousands of years, the last time people got together and shut down the banking system was in about 1309, and they beheaded Jean de Pion, the leader of the Knights Templar. And destroyed the entire banking system that was established by those. In like 1290 A.D., the Catholic Church gave 12 Spanish galleons to to the Knights Templars, and they were running the Mediterranean Sea and the commerce and the they actually controlled the whole pharmacy and the pharmacratic inquisition. They were the ones that they were behind, eliminating shamans and witches or midwives, the people that were using the sacred herbs in the forest and helping heal the villagers. But as they came in with their banking system, they wanted to control the pharmacy too, and this all happened during the Inquisition. But so they established this big banking system and everything, and then a lot of people got in debt to him, and the French king. And well, anyways, the story goes that the Knights Templars were killed. And that's why in America, this place was founded by Freemasons. That Friday the 13th has this taboo around it. It all has to do with that. But it wasn't not even 40 years after that banking system collapsed that the Great Plague happened, and it wiped out 3/4 of the population around the planet or something like that. And that's because the entire infrastructure collapsed. So a lot of people hate on Freemasons and stuff, but the fact that we have homes with plumbing and running water and electricity all ties into what these guys were doing way back when. Now, originally, these Freemasonic orders, if you study history, and I've studied tons of this stuff, the first Masonic Lodge was established by King James, I believe, and they were really basically, they were these lodge. Okay, let me give you a real quick story. In 79 A.D., the Romans sacked Jerusalem. They destroyed Jerusalem. They destroyed the Holy Temple, but at the same time, they captured 10,000 masons, metallurgists, alchemists, all these different people that were building the holy city. 10,000 of them. And this story is captured in Rome. If you look at the Arc de Triomphe, and you see the Romans carrying off the Jewish menorah and stuff, the story's captured right then. But it was those 10,000 Masons that were captured and enslaved and put to work in Rome that really changed Rome and built Rome into the glory that it was. They really worked wonders there. And it's because of their understanding of biology and how to incorporate biology into biologic architecture and build cathedrals and temples and beautiful buildings. And they understood the ancient works of the Masons that built Solomon's temples and so on. Now, they were enslaved in Rome, and eventually they crashed the Roman denarii system, okay? And when they bought themselves out of slavery, they labeled themselves free and accepted Masons, and then they went around opening up these fraternal lodges that would barter for fair wages against the Catholic Church. And eventually that led into ties into the Protestant movements and all that stuff. Martin Luther's in this. That has a lot to do with it too, but even if you look at all of the Protestant founders, they're all Freemasons. Jacob Amon, the Amish, even the more modern stuff, you could look at like C. Charles Russell. He's a Freemason who started the Jehovah's Witness, and Joseph Smith, he was a 33rd degree Freemason that started this stuff too. You know the thing about, never mind. So they were bartering for fair wages for a long time against the Catholic Church and trying to seek religious, and they didn't want to pay the taxes. They didn't want to succumb to this stuff, and so these lodges secretly came over here, and people like Sir Francis Bacon and Queen Elizabeth, after Queen Mary died, they really started to spread the knowledge around. But King James printed the first Bible after Gutenberg invented the printing press, and it was the first time that people started getting the opportunity to read and to write and to start understanding themselves. And then, of course, the Inquisition, the Catholic Church, tried to put an end to all that. So anybody got caught with the Bible was burnt on the cross and hung upside down on the cross. So sometimes some of the old Protestants would wear their crosses upside down in defiance of the Catholic Church. And so that's where that comes from, and that bugs out a lot of people when they see that. But if you understand that in order to barter and trade with other countries, they got to be on the same time frame. They got to be on the same uh, uh, calendar system, the year of our Lord. And then Universal Code of Commerce comes in, civil, maritime, or common law, and then the banking systems trickle in, and all of that good stuff. And then these people start getting birth bonded. Same thing happened in India when India was taken over by the English. Their citizens got slips, and then money started being printed on them. And anytime, my point, I want to go back to this, is a weird thing too. Anytime that someone tries to stand up against these people, they get martyred and put on the money. Jesus, for example, Yeshua ben Joseph, whatever you want to call him, he turned the tables at the temples, and it wasn't very long after that you'd see on the money, you'd see Christ hanging on the cross. And in Christendom, because we're inherently against usury, Christians have for thousands of years used the Jews for the banking system intentionally, because Jews don't have a problem with usury. So you can look all this up on Wikipedia. I'm not making any of this stuff up, but this is why I think the Jews get blamed for the money system and the banking. And the Rothschild family, of course, is one of the wealthiest Jewish families in the world, and they're a big investor in the United States of America. And America saved the Rothschild family from Hitler. Hitler was trying to destroy that Jewish banking dynasty. But it was Christendom itself that inherently gave them the power over the banking industry. And then if you look into the modern future, how I said that Christ was put on the money, and then people get loyal to it. They get, oh, this is a good thing. Now, when we see particular faces on our money, it trips me out, because many of the people on the money, Andrew Jackson, for example, they despised his central bank. They didn't want to have anything to do with that, and they fought. And then now they're on the money that the Federal Reserve's printing out to us, these central banks. And it trips me the hell out. Even JFK, Abraham Lincoln, the South was borrowing money from the international bankers, and they were enslaving people through maritime admiralty law. They were giving them birth certificates as they were coming off the ship, birthed, and you'd have a doctor or some guy sitting on the dock that would write out size, shape, and weight, make a birth certificate, and then that slave and that birth certificate would get bought by a slave owner, and that slave owner would take that birth certificate to the bank and ask for money, and have to pay it back with usury, have to pay it back with interest as they built their plantations and stuff. Well, in the North was the Union, and the first trade unions were the Masonic lodges. The South was the Confederates, or the Feds. So these trade unions in the North were inherently against enslaving people. They fought to end the slaveries in a sense, but it was also more than that. The slaves in the South were producing way more because of the invention of the cotton gin, and the unions in the North were starting to suffer. But it's crazy that once Abraham Lincoln won his battle or whatever, the first thing he did was sign an executive order to create a new money system called a greenback. And a skull and bonesman puts a bullet in the back of his head from the Knights of the Golden Circle, puts an end to that. These skull and bonesmen, check this out, this is a trip. Those Templars that controlled the Aegean Sea between 1290 and 1310 or whatever, they ran it for a long time before that, but they were really powerful around 1290. They left the Aegean Sea and they took a whole bunch of stuff, and they sailed across America. They sailed across the Atlantic Ocean, and they set up base in Puerto Rico, the oldest annex of the United States of America. And they pulled down their Templar flags, and they hung the skull and bones flags, and then they literally pirated and harassed they knew all the maritime trade routes. So they went around in this new government, this new system that gets established. They went around and started harassing everybody and pirating them and stuff. And they set up shop. They were called the Pirates of the Caribbean. We watch their movies and stuff, and it's in our lore. It's no coincidence that the Federal Reserve, the IRS, The CIA, all of those places are based out of Puerto Rico, um, subject to maritime law. So we're all birth bonded today. This just like the slaves were. The money system hasn't changed too much. Even JFK, he tried to shut down the Federal Reserve System by printing a new dollar called the silverback, and he signed Executive Order 1110, and then he was taken out, and that was overturned. So, in our school system right now, because the powers that be, since World War II and beyond, has since the Great Depression, America's gone bankrupt 7 times, 8 times, and each time we wind up reaching out across the ocean, and we've had to do that. I mean, you got to remember, at one time we were fighting England, and now our president bends down and kisses the Queen's hand and the Pope, which back in the day that was not cool. We were trying to get away from all that. I don't know if this is not going to make sense to some people, but I studied a lot of history and went over all this stuff, and it's shocking to people when you see that there's this world power that's beyond us. So there's 2 money classes in the world, okay? There's not low class and middle class and rich people. Millionaires are just millionaires. Billionaires is another class of people. But there's really only 2. Those are the people that print the money, make the money, and there's the people that use the money. And those royal families, those wealthy families that invest into the countries, I'm telling you, their kids don't have Social Security cards and birth certificates like us. If you look at the bottom of your birth certificate, it says United States Treasury Bond. So we're in bondage. But, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Run up to the hills and hide and hunker down, and life's going to be a little tougher for you. Nobody's kicking in my door, so I'm not going to freak out. J.P. Morgan, I don't know if I said that quote, but he said, billionaires use astrology, millionaires don't. Those guys know what's up. Those guys know what's up. And so many of us are waking up to it. Don't be full of fear, though, because if you when you try to learn with fear, it disrupts your brain chemistry, and you can't see the big picture. So just go at everything with love and understanding, and then you'll understand and get the big picture. So, I don't know. Have a great day, people. This is the longest video I've made. Hopefully I can upload it. Peace.